Joining us now from the Loyola University Maryland Selinger School of Business and Management is Peter Lorenzi, Professor of Management. Professor, thank you for being with us.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks,
We
Jeff.
want to drill into the idea of social entrepreneurship a little bit. How do you define that?
Social entrepreneurship is a relatively intuitive term. The entrepreneurial part means the creative combination of capital. The social part means that we try to address social issues, social problems, everything from poverty to environmental concerns to the marginalized.
So what is somebody trying to accomplish when they start a social entrepreneurship venture? Is it about the money, or is it about doing good, or is it somehow both at the same time?
Well, it would be both at the same time, with clearly the emphasis on doing something good. For a social enterprise to remain viable, it has to be sustainable through at least some generation of revenue to cover its cost. It's not intended as a pure charity play. So it typically has a business proposition, but the business proposition tends to be aimed at, again, the poor portions of the population.
Is there conflict inherent in this when it comes to, do we invest the corporation's resources here, there, or neither?
I think it's not that different from the conflict between, say, do we invest in research and development, or do we invest in lower prices, and the trade-offs that any business has to go through. It's just that in this case, you have a special attention to a group of people who traditionally weren't part of the entrepreneur's market. You think of the traditional entrepreneur as going out and looking for profit and customers who will pay good money. A social entrepreneur goes out and looks for a problem that needs solved and then has to figure out, how can I solve it using, let's say, innovative business practices in a way that'll sustain over a period of time.
Any examples come to mind?
I mean, the traditional one that got the original attention was Grameen Bank, run by Muhammad Yunus, which is an interesting sort of social entrepreneurship play in both respects, because it both brought money to people who wanted to be social entrepreneurs, and the very act of microfinance, which is what the Grameen Bank is famous for, that's a form of social entrepreneurship. It took money to people who were previously unempowered, lacking resources. And that's probably the best global example. I mean, there are examples in Baltimore as well. I work with a local firm called Local Color Flowers, who basically draws all of their resources from local farmers rather than importing from afar. So it provides local jobs, cuts down on carbon footprint. It creates a different niche in the market.
And then that itself becomes a selling point.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, customers today are interested in a social proposition, whether it's fair trade coffee or good labor practices. Customers are interested in that, so it can be part of your business value proposition as well. You don't have to be a not-for-profit or a charity to run a social enterprise.
Are customers used to paying a little bit more? And has there been research into just, you know, what the price point is where it becomes a problem?
I think there's been some research to suggest that people are willing to pay a bit of a premium if they think that it's serving the common good or serving a marginalized group. The exact break point, whether it's 10% more, 20% more, I don't think there's any hard evidence for that.
What about the required authenticity? I occasionally see some pitch where it just appears sometimes like an organization is wrapping itself in some cause just for the wrapper, and it wasn't really their intent.
It is a marketing advantage today to wrap yourself in that cloak of whether you call it social responsibility or the common good or so on. But there's a real risk that if you don't deliver that your brand can be destroyed pretty quickly. And what looks like a charity or a good proposition or something that's promoting the social good can collapse pretty much overnight. There's an example of Craig Mortensen with the 3 cups of tea proposition that was covered widely by the press, where he was starting schools, I believe it was in India or Pakistan, but his foundation was really sort of a facade, and when he was found out, it pretty much collapsed.
Yeah. Talk about the city of Baltimore for just half a minute as a laboratory, and maybe your students might have an interest in exploring that opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, Loyola students would be interested in the idea of, let's say, a career in Baltimore that could be related to social enterprise. They're committed to service, and Loyola is, as we say in our strategic plan, we're anchored in Baltimore. So there are certainly propositions available for them, and a lot of them start out while they're in school, whether it's in tutoring programs or helping businesses with their projects. Baltimore is not unique, but it's much like a lot of other post-industrial cities that has social problems that go beyond the lack of manufacturing jobs, but into things like everything from well, let's say racism, just lack of education, poverty, the types of issues that.
Peter Lorenzi with the Sellinger School of Business, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.